Well, let me tell you about Jack Murphy's Law. You don't fuck with Jack Murphy.
Covenant, you're calling Raven.
Payback time.
Come with me if you want to live. You just don't turn it off!
Murphy's Law was released in 1986, directed by J. Lee Thompson and starring Charles Bronson, Kathleen Wilhoite, and Carrie Snodgress. Charles Bronson plays Jack Murphy, a veteran police detective who is framed for the murder of his ex-wife. Although taken into custody, Murphy escapes from the police station, handcuffed to a foul-mouthed car thief. Pursued by the police, Murphy must find the real killer before it's too late. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason, and you're watching Backtrack Cinema. Welcome to my review of Murphy's Law. So this is another team-up between Charles Bronson and director J. Lee Thompson. And this is one I feel like a lot of Charles Bronson fans have in the middle. Maybe it's not really talked about as their best. It's not talked about their worst either. So, but this one I've always had a lot of nostalgia for. This is one I remember a lot growing up as a kid. My uncles, they introduced me to Charles Bronson and all that. But I remember watching a program on Sundays called Movies for Guys Who Like Movies, and they would play like a lot of the canon films. They'd play like Rocky, they'd play Over the Top, all these sorts of films. And Murphy's Law was one of them. They'd play once in a while. Every Sunday it'd be all afternoon. You get guys movies. So this brings back a lot of memories for me. I like the storyline of the burnt out cop. Whenever you have a burnt out cop, whatever it is, and he turns to alcohol, or he's like he's just really down on his luck. I've always liked those story angles in cop movies. So this one, for the most part has worked for me. We have Charles Bronson playing Jack Murphy, whose wife divorced him recently. He's down on his luck, turning to alcohol. He's burnt out, and he gets set up for the murder of his ex-wife by a lady that he put away in jail years ago. And she goes to make his life hell by killing his ex-wife, going after the judge that put her away, going after his partner who was on the case when Charles Bronson and him put her away. And she sets Charles Bronson up quite good, and he breaks out of jail with this foul-mouthed thief, and then they're on the run. Then they're on the run through this whole movie so he can clear his name and all that. So pretty simple stuff here. We're talking Charles Bronson. His persona is great. And we also got a side story where the mafia is on his ass too, which I think could have been handled a lot better. I don't think it was fleshed out very good. I don't think it's that relevant. But hey, like I said, these movies aren't always perfect, man. Like I've been talking about these canon films before about how they're just kind of like junk food cinema. But the movie opens up with, Charles Bronson getting some groceries, and he gets his car stolen, and that's where we meet a character named Arabella. And she's this foul-mouthed teenager thief living off the streets and stuff like that, and she steals his car. That's kind of like the setup. We're going to see these two characters later in this film. But Charles Bronson always brings the charisma. He brings that quiet toughness. You know what I mean? It's always there. It's just that this time he's just a really burnt out alcoholic and kind of a sad character, if you ask me. But he actually goes to the strip bar where his ex-wife is stripping and watches her. I just don't know if that's creepy, or if I go, dude, why are you punishing yourself? And I'm thinking, if that was me, there's no way in hell I would be there. He follows his ex-wife and her lover to the apartment, and that's where he gets hit on the head and he gets framed really good. But he's just a miserable old bastard in this. It's like, dude, why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you wallowing in that kind of pity? Every time I watch this movie, I'm just like, oh, dude, move on. And we got Arabella. This is the young foul-mouthed thief, and this is a character who chooses to steal cars because it's better than being a hooker. You get the sense that she's homeless, she's off the streets, and Charles Bronson actually busts her, throws her in jail, and then he end up thrown in jail. They escape together, and they go on this little kind of journey together. They're kind of forced like a mirror to look at themselves through each other and see the worst side of themselves. Charles Bronson being this alcoholic, and she's like, you wouldn't be so bad if you just cleaned your act up. And she's forced to look at herself of how she could do better too, instead of just running her mouth off all the time, stealing cars. Because, you see that she has a lot of potential to be, better than what she's doing. So if there's any kind of character development at all in this, there's these two characters who are on the opposite sides completely, who, just despise each other at the beginning. and they kind of are forced to look at each other, their worst sides, and they bring out the best of themselves to each other. Foul mouth. I mean, when I watched this as a kid, I remember watching this with my mom, and my mom just being like, "Man, what a foul mouth freaking girl! Holy crap!" My mom was one of these people who would talk at the TV all the time, and during and that day and back in those days in 1980s, like in 1986 when this first come out, what she's saying is pretty shocking, actually. Like, the colorful metaphor she's saying, like puke breath and dildo nose and butt crust, and all the freaking one-liners she says. It's just freaking that was pretty shocking because in the 80s, even early 90s, like the generation I grew up in, I mean, you did not talk back to your elders. You certainly did not talk back to a detective, and so this was a brazen woman. This was a foul mouthed teenage girl who was this freaking just a punk, right? Just a punk, and the way she's talking, it was pretty shocking. Today's standards, no. So she's not even really swearing. She's like, this saying butt crust and dildo nose, like I said, and I can't remember all the lines she says. I'm just trying to going off. I'm ad libbing here, guys. I'm ad libbing, but
Barf bag, dildo nose, dog snot, kiss my pantyhose, sperm bank. I eat it, toe jam, monkey vomit.
But yeah, in the day it was shocking. Not now. The character would be pretty dated now. Like if you were to remake this, you'd have to really amp up the language if you're gonna strike a chord with this modern audience. But she's played by Kathleen Wilhoite. I hope I'm saying that right. Now, a lot of you would know her from Roadhouse. She plays Carrie in Roadhouse, where she gets up and sings with Jeff Healey. She's the waitress at the bar. I think a very strong character actress. I believe she's a singer too, actress, singer. But she has done some good work. You just put her in these small roles in these movies, and she really fills out a story. You know what I mean? She was really good in Fire in the Sky, the Alien movie where she's Robert Patrick's wife. She was really good in that. She's been in a lot of things over the years. I saw her in a 24 episode as well. But she's actually the best part of this movie. She's the most entertaining part of this movie. She's a lot of fun. I mean, that's where all the entertainment is seeing this Charles Bronson being mouthed off to by this foul mouthed car thief, right? And then we got our villain. We got Joan Freeman, played by Carrie Snodgress. She did Pale Rider a year earlier. Seeing her as a villain, I really liked her as the villain. I thought she was quite menacing. She easily lures people in. She's got a real sadistic way about her, the way she loathes in all this revenge plot. One of the people she kills, I mean, she tells this guy, "Now open your mouth," and the guy's terrified as it is. Just the look at her eyes and everything, you just really believe that this character is going to stop at nothing but to get her revenge. And so I really, really liked the performance. Charles Bronson did Death Wish 3, I think a year earlier. It's not action packed like that. I mean, that has a balls to the walls ending. This movie could have used more action, if I'm being honest. It's a lot of them fleeing from location to location. They're on the run, you know what I mean? And then they come back to the city at the end because he finds out who this girl is, who he put away, and goes after her, right? But we get Charles Bronson taken off in a helicopter and everything, and there is a Friday the 13th connection to this movie. I'm a big Friday the 13th fan, but he lands this helicopter on a barn, and apparently that's the barn from Friday the 13th Part 3. And then he goes to seek shelter at a friend's of his house, and it's the Jarvis house. Clearly, it's the Jarvis house. The Jarvis house has been used in many movies too. It was also used in Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But those of you who like Friday the 13th, you're going to see some very familiar locations in this movie. I mean, this is a canon film. We could rip it to shreds with things making sense, plot holes, all that kind of stuff. But when I look at a canon film, I look at it what it is. I have always enjoyed these kind of movies. So, but I will say one scene in particular where Arabella, Charles Bronson's Jack Murphy they're kind of getting closer and closer. They start, throughout the movie, they actually become friends till at the end when she actually gets shot with an arrow. He screams like, no, you know what I mean? And it's actually a good moment because it shows how close they become. But anyways, I digress a bit. But there's one scene where it's almost like they're looking at each other romantically. Like, she's like, you know, you're not so bad if you just stop the boozing and stuff like that. Oh, he's like, oh, really? But it's towing the line, but you're getting the sense that they're not going to do that. They're not going to like kiss at the end or something like that, because it's more of a father-daughter relationship. I thought it was really off kilter and everything like that, and I'm just like, yeah, they could have handled that better, because through this whole movie, he's not looking at her like that, she's not looking at him like that. So it's just very fucking strange, you know what I mean? But I'd recommend this movie, guys. At least it's worth watching. I would say, you know, on the next Sunday afternoon, put on some Charles Bronson, put on Murphy's Law. You know, you may like it. I'm gonna give Murphy's Law from 1986 a C+. What about you guys? Have you seen Murphy's Law? Let me know in the comments below. We'll have a good discussion on this movie. So there's your next video you should watch. Go down the rabbit holes, I always say. And I thank you very much for watching. My name is JC. You're watching Backtrack Cinema. I'll see you next time, and I'll see you in the movies. Cheers.